Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Therapist Theater. My name is Josh Treese, and I'm coming to you from Music City, USA, with a podcast that takes a look at relationships and mental health through the lens of movies, TV, and pop culture. This week, I'm welcoming Elizabeth Schuler Edwards to the theater. Elizabeth is a therapist and director of compassionate care at the Refuge Center in Franklin, Tennessee. She's also very rare in that she's an actual Nashville native. Around here, that's a bit like finding a unicorn. And on top of that, the movie that she brought with her is 2004's Mean Girls. P.S. When I told Leigh-Ann that a guest picked Mean Girls, she did a fist pump and said, "Yes!" This week's show is pretty big, but for me, this week holds something even bigger. I discovered my passion to become a therapist in 2014. In 2015, I left South Carolina and moved to Nashville to start grad school with my eye on one day achieving that passion. I graduated in December of 2017, and in April of 2018, I started Mount Sparrow Counseling. During that whole time, I continued to work part-time to make ends meet. Actually, when I say part-time, I mean that for a lot of it, I was working between 25 to 37 hours a week. And that all ends today. Because today, May 15th, is my last day at my part-time job. As of 2:30 p.m. today, I'm a full-time therapist. To say that I'm glad is a vast understatement. Truth is, if I tried to express the entirety of my feelings right now, the show would run for a day or so. I set out on this journey 5 years ago, and today, I arrived. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Dim the lights, raise the curtain, and start the previews. Welcome to the theater. Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show. I feel like whenever you say welcome to the show, in my head, there's an expectation of it's like a professional show where we have a set and all that kind of stuff, and it's just my office.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Professional office.
And it's
nonetheless
not even really,
an office.
Yeah, it's not even really like I didn't decorate it. I have a couple bookshelves, but yeah, it's much more chill than I think in my head.
Yeah.
When I hear people say, "Welcome to the show."
Yeah.
That I picture.
I hear that.
But I'll get there. I don't know, maybe. I don't know if I want to get there.
Maybe it will be a show.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah. Yeah. If it makes it to television, what kind of band do you think we need to get for this thing?
Ooh. I'm thinking of my styles.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Right now I love Johnny Swim.
Okay.
So they're kind of my people right now. I feel like I get a lot of backlash for this. Maybe from some of the teenagers I work with, but Taylor Swift.
Can I just tell you something?
I love it.
So we're recording this on April the 25th.
Tonight's the night.
Well, my
11
wife
o'clock.
Works downtown.
So does, yes, okay.
And right before we got together, I called her. I had run out to the gas station real quick to get a Coke, and I was coming back, and I called her. And she screamed into the phone.
She saw her doing her announcement.
There.
I saw that. Yeah,
she screamed into the phone, "Love, I can't talk to you right now. I've got a video. Taylor Swift, she's on the stage right now. I gotta go."
Yeah.
And I just went, "Okay."
Oh. Man, lucky
so she's
woman.
Down there. Yeah.
Man, I saw that she was going to be making an announcement.
I thought it was supposed to be tomorrow.
Well, so officially, I think something happens tomorrow, but at 11, maybe 10, I think 11 o'clock, if it's going to be music that's released, it'll come up on iTunes tonight at 11. Because I think whatever standard time, that would be technically
We're
12.
Central. Yeah.
So
I'm not really up on the Taylor Swift stuff. Maybe I imagined this. I thought that she always dropped stuff like in October.
I don't know.
I thought there was something about the 17th or something.
Well, her lucky number is the 13th.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Interesting.
She does her thing. But
I'm sure I'll get the update tonight.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah,
You
I'll
got
let
a
you
good
know.
wife.
Yeah.
Got a good woman for that.
Yeah, she went to the concert whenever Taylor Swift was at Nissan.
I didn't go. I should have. I wanted to. This time around, it's going to happen. I have been to one of her concerts, and it was amazing.
I think she told me about like everybody that went got a bracelet, and then the bracelets had lights on them, and it was like if you think about an LED light board, how it individual bulbs, but then they do the animations and all that. The bracelets did that.
Oh wow!
So
see, she's fancy.
Yeah, in shots of the crowd or whatever, you would see like a light snake or something, and it was all the bracelets getting lit up. They had programmed them all to where.
She's genius.
Yeah, well, it's probably not her, but you know,
well, I'll give her the credit.
It's somebody that's
she's
doing
got
it.
the people.
That's true.
So I'm gonna go. It depends on your demographic, but Johnny Swim or Taylor Swift.
Okay. Listen, why do we need to limit ourselves? Let's get both on there.
Yeah.
Super
dream
band?
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would work.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know who I would get. I really like the Roots with Jimmy Fallon. I saw them in concert once, and it's one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah. They were crazy. The guy that plays the tuba was dancing on stage.
With a tuba?
Yes.
Dang, that's talent.
With that thing on. And occasionally he would put it down and continue dancing, but it wasn't often in like an hour-long show. And I just thought, that guy's got to have cardio.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah. So I might, I guess I can't take them from Jimmy.
Sure you can.
Yeah.
Your show might take over Jimmy's show.
That would be, I used to say the whole, like, what's your dream job question. For me, it was always, I want to host the late show. Like, I don't want to be David Letterman.
Right.
I want to be me, but I want to host the late show.
That would be a fun gig.
Yeah. And Leigh-Ann used to live in New York, so I feel like she'd be on board for that.
She's got the connections.
She went to school up there.
Yeah.
So the Roots could work. I might like Zac Brown Band. They might be fun to have as a band.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw them in concert once, and they did a lot of different kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they do that, I think. Wasn't their last album, they had it's kind of jazzy, or at least one song with Sarah Bareilles.
Oh,
that was
that might be 2 albums ago. That's actually the album that I jumped off the bandwagon on.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Loved everything until that album. Bought that album.
Yeah.
This was before Apple Music.
Yeah.
Bought that album and was like, this is hot garbage.
I heard people were saying that.
Yeah, which I think they were trying to go after, because the Jekyll and Hyde thing, half the songs on it were one way, and then the other half were another. And for me, there was a song that I thought, oh, this sounds like some kind of Justin Bieber, Skrillex, Diplo kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm out, guys.
Yeah.
And then when they went back to, he ended up forming a side project, like a trio, where they did stuff like that. And then the next album, they went back more country, but I was just like, ooh.
At that point, you were already off.
Sorry, guys.
Dang.
I've reached the age where I don't really listen to new music, which I thought was impossible.
Huh. I could see that. It's hard to discover new music and get
Especially
into
with
it.
Apple Music.
I don't know. I don't have Apple Music.
Do you have the Spotify?
No, I just pick and choose and hope for the best. Sometimes I scroll through things.
Before you had radio or something, and you'd get the new. But if you're paying for like a streaming, you kind of find a pocket and just kind of hang out there.
Yeah, I think I exhaust it. I'll get stuck on a song, typically a song or a person or band. Play it endlessly, and then I'm like, all right, I'm done until I find something else.
Do you hate it after that, or do you just move on? And
I think I move on, and then later on I might come back to it and be like, oh, I love this, and think about all the stuff that went along with that, or memories that are brought up from that.
So here's one. I read an article about this one time and identified with it. Has there ever been an artist or like a song or something that you loved, but because of a relationship, it got ruined for you and you can't go back to it?
I don't know. There are some things that'll take me back to memories and things that might not be fond of, but it's like, oh, okay. It's kind of like the smell. When you smell it again, it
Yeah.
kind of takes you back. And
I heard that that's the sense that's tied the strongest to
I've heard
memory.
that too. And it makes sense. Well, I don't know if it makes sense, but there's this smell, and I've smelled it a couple times, and it takes me back to my 4th grade classroom. Nothing else does that.
What's the smell?
I have no earthly idea what it is, but it's just some scent, and I've smelt it a couple of times. I don't know, over the past couple of years, and I'm like, holy crap, Miss Montgomery's 4th grade classroom.
Maybe once we get to the fall, you go to like Walmart or Target to the school supplies, and you see if you can like sniff it out.
Maybe.
Is
I
it
wonder.
is it crayons? Is it the new favorite here, the new binder smell, like the new 3-ring binder smell?
Huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll have to check it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's good stuff.
See if you
though.
can track that down.
Yeah.
Is it when it takes you back? Is it like a fond thing, or?
I loved her as a teacher, and I think there's nothing negative associated with it. It's more of, oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Montgomery. What's funny is we used to write for back and forth for quite a while, just letters to one another.
Your teacher?
Yeah.
Oh.
When I was in college, and for some reason we stopped, and I probably didn't respond or something. Well, I found her on Facebook, and I sent her a message, and she didn't respond. But I think there was like a glitch or something, and so somehow I ended up sending her like 20 messages it was the exact same thing.
Repeats, yeah.
I don't know how it happened. And then I felt compelled to send her a message and be like, listen, I know that happened, and she's probably dead at this point, but I didn't mean to do that. And it was one of those, she probably got all 20 and thought, oh my gosh,
Stalker.
she's after. Yeah. Yeah. So it was bad, but I don't know. Haven't heard back from her, but I like the smell of her classroom.
Okay.
She was a sweet woman.
Nice.
Yeah. Becky Montgomery.
Wow. Who was my 4th grade teacher? I don't remember Miss Moore. I was very intimidated by her. At that point, though, you had like more than one teacher.
Yeah.
So you maybe started out in one classroom and you shifted to another, and then maybe you came back. I don't know. She's the only one that I can remember having, but I remember being very scared of her.
Really? That was Miss Postal Weight for me in 5th grade. She was mean.
Postal Weight?
Yeah, she was mean. I even told my parents when she was they were going to the parent-teacher conference, I was like, listen, she's going to seem like she's really nice, but she's not.
It's
my
trap.
parents are like, okay, I understand. She was in the Navy, but for some reason I thought it'd be funny to tell my parents she was a Navy SEAL. And they were like, what? And I was like, no, just kidding. And I don't know how I thought that would be funny, but it was. So.
Was it you were picturing a SEAL, but with like Donald Duck's clothing on?
No, I was thinking of like
The actual,
hardcore Navy
you knew what
SEAL.
that was then? Wow.
Yeah, my dad was in the Navy, not
go.
for very long, but so I think just in talking to him, I knew of Navy stuff and knew that. I don't know if I knew what Navy SEAL stood for, but I knew they were.
It was a thing.
Like a higher up or more intense thing
Yeah.
of the Navy. So, yeah.
My 5th grade teacher, Miss Rainwater, was the mean one for me.
Oh.
And I remember getting, I can't even say I got busted. So I remember in class one day, this other girl that was in the class raised her hand when the homework was being collected, and out of nowhere, and said, Miss Rainwater, I saw Josh doing his homework during lunch.
What a.
And I got in trouble for that.
What a narc. What?
Yeah.
You got it done, though.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
thing.
Like, even as a 5th
You did
grader,
it.
I was like, I got it done. Who cares? And I remember Mrs. Rainwater saying, I'm going to call your mother and tell her that you didn't have it done when you came to school. And I thought, well, I hope she just says that I'm productive and used my time wisely.
Right,
and
you
got
turned
it
it
done.
in.
Like, yeah.
You-
Because I didn't cheat. I didn't copy from anybody.
Yeah.
I just got it done.
What would have happened if you didn't turn it in? How would Miss Rainwater react then?
Who knows?
Ugh.
I got in trouble for
What
not
a
doing my
nut.
homework all the time. So
For doing your homework?
No, for not.
Oh.
Yeah, so this is like a time that I actually did it, and I got
Yeah.
in trouble for that too, which I think
Couldn't
what
win.
we would call is a double bind.
Yes.
Like, I'm going to get in trouble for not, I'm going to get in trouble for,
What's the point?
how do I win here?
Yeah. Ugh. That sucks.
Luckily, the stakes were pretty low in 5th grade. I wish I remembered
true.
what the homework was,
Yeah.
but I don't.
Something super great.
I bet it was
and
long
easy.
division, because that stuff was tough.
Yeah, and you had to do the little R
Yeah.
when you would. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Once I got it, I was happy about it. But until I got it, I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
And do you remember them telling us that we weren't going to be carrying around calculators, and so
Yeah.
we had to learn how to do it?
They had no idea
Do
what
they
was
still
coming.
say that?
I assume they probably do. Well, what I hear a lot of adolescents say, their teachers will tell them they will have to use this later on in life, or you don't have to use this later on in life, but you have to learn it now. And I think just lie to them. Tell them they will have to, so it at least gives them a motivation, like you might. And
maybe lean harder into it and say your life depends on you knowing how to do long division.
That would be good.
And if you don't, literally everybody you love will die.
That's how I need to get clients. I need to go to the schools. Tell them. You need to tell your kid this. Yeah. It'll be great.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff from grade school that I felt like was going to keep coming up later on in life. That
just
cursive writing. I mean, other than the signature.
See, I do a little. Mine, I'm horrible at spelling. Mine will be print cursive or cursive print. But also, if I don't know how to spell something, it turns into just a squiggle. And I'm like, oh, it's cursive. But I also learned it in kindergarten. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that was a thing. And so I was dead set on cursive being a thing forever.
You committed.
I did. And I love it. I mean, it's sloppy, but I enjoy it. It's pretty.
I don't remember. I think that I made the switch somewhere in high school where I started writing in pen.
Yeah.
I think I stuck with cursive while pencil was happening. So, and I don't think that there was any reason why those two things were associated other than just that's kind of the mile marker that I remember.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know if they teach that anymore.
If they
don't, how do kids learn how to sign?
They don't. It's just an X.
Yeah. Just make your mark. Oh my gosh.
Prince will be a symbol. Yeah.
Well, speaking of signing on to things, in a completely non sequitur kind of transition.
That was a good one.
I like to ask everybody that comes in, why therapy?
Yeah.
Like, why did you get into this and do what you do?
Yeah. Well, it's so both of my parents are in the nursing field, and my mom always told me, whatever career you do, pick something that will be able to support the lifestyle you want. So I thought that's actually good advice. So I love helping people.
Did she help you in any way adjust your expectations for the lifestyle you wanted?
No, my husband has. So
did you just think, I'm going to be red carpeting the whole way?
Yeah,
I got to find something that's going to...
Well, I think I like pretty nice things. It doesn't have to be the best of the best. I want to like what I like. But this profession clearly, unless I think full private, I do well and I make plenty of money to do the things I want, but I'm also married and that's also a helpful thing. But I was going to do nursing because it's all I knew. I loved the stories my parents had, the relationships they had with people they worked with, the idea of helping. And that's kind of the only way I knew to help people is the physical, the nursing. And when I was younger, both of my, kind of later on while I was younger, both of my grandmas have severe mental illness. And so that was also always a thing of just the idea of mental health, that it was normalized in our family, within my immediate family. It was normalized and a thing that people have. So, and then later on, my brother was diagnosed with bipolar. And that, I think, was a huge thing that I think well, let me restart that. So, brother diagnosed with bipolar. Around that time, my parents did a great job of getting all of us in therapy. In college, I made average grades in high school and stuff, kind of struggled. In college, thought I was going to do nursing, kind of got into it, didn't love it, didn't.
Where'd you go to college?
So I went to a few. I started off at Carson Newman. Hated being away from home.
Where's that?
It's in Jefferson City, so about 30 minutes east of Knoxville. And I would study for hours and still make horrible grades. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I came home that summer. Went to Columbia State, started medicine, got my grades up. Then I went to Aquinas. So at the time they had a nursing program. Was going to do that. Realized I don't want to do that. Then ended up at MTSU because all the credits I had taken could go towards a degree, and I could have specializations in that degree. And I took a class with Dr. Ujich Ward at MTSU, adolescent psychology, and she is amazing. Absolutely loved the way she approached things. She thought about things, and she taught. She was a fabulous teacher. And I talked to her about what I wanted to do, because at that point I realized psychology, I love that, but it's also, well, what am I going to do with it? Mm-hmm. And she said it sounded like I need to check out the master's in clinical mental health counseling. And so I did, and it sounded like a great idea.
Still at MTSU? Or?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they've got a great program there. Checked it out. It seemed like a good fit, and applied and got into the program. So it was, and I'd always been interested in the mental health aspect, I think, ever since I had kind of known what it was.
So it seems like what you're saying, like from pretty early on, you just had mental health kind of integrated into your life in a really natural way.
Right.
At first, just being maybe introduced to stuff in the same way with your grandmothers, with your brother, that other people may know, grandpa has emphysema.
Right.
Great aunt has this or that. It's just
Exactly.
it's another thing.
Yep.
And then starting your own work. So that just kind of feels like by the time you got to that professor in college that said you should check this out,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like exploring this brand new thing.
Right.
It sounds like it was more like she helped unlock something in you.
Yeah. I think the professional aspect, because I could understand what others were going through. So to, I think, get the educational, professional, how to use my experiences, my skills, but structure them in a way that could be helpful and make it into a career.
Or maybe even get skills so you didn't have to use your experiences.
Right, exactly.
Like you had the ability to empathize already, but you can't. I think, at least for me, if I were to rely on just my skills, I'd try to template.
Yeah.
I'd try to make everybody fit the template of me.
Yeah.
And so to have skills, then you can let them be them. But
Exactly.
still help them.
Yep, for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you still stay in contact with that professor?
We're friends on Facebook. And so...
So in as much as people stay in contact on Facebook.
Yeah. She... I would call her Dr. Widget, because her name is Dr. Ujich Ward. And so Dr. Widget. She's pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah. Very cool. So, like, transitioning from getting the education into doing the thing, like, do you have a specialty? Do you have a particular population that you work with?
Yeah. I work a lot with kids, adolescents, and young adults. I think my favorite age group is probably 12 to early 20s. Maybe 18, but early 20s. I just love the adolescent age group, especially working with them. I think you know where you stand. You can call them out with some stuff, and it's just a fun group to work with. Even when it's heavy stuff, it's a fun one. So it's probably probably the age group I work the most with.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything in particular with that age group, or is it just whatever they need?
Whatever they need. I find a lot of trauma, really, depression, anxiety, social stuff, peer things, kind of just a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think hearing that, it makes perfect sense why you picked the movie that you picked today.
Yeah.
What movie did you bring?
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls.
Yep, it's a good one.
It's
classic.
Whenever you told me what you wanted to pick, I emailed you and told you that my wife fist pumped whenever she heard that you were going to do that.
Yeah.
Which is great. She and her group of friends from when she was growing up still send quotes back and forth.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
From the movie.
Yeah.
The only quote that I've really ever used consistently is "Boo, you whore," and I don't know if that's
it's a good one,
but only in a professional setting. That's the only
time. Of course,
time
naturally. As I was watching the movie last night, so I used to go to church camp all the time, and there were a group of us who were always friends, and we'd hang out. And I didn't realize at the time, but so someone was talking about something. So in the movie, there's the scene where all the girls are looking in the mirror, talking about how big their pores are, how fat they are, and then they look over at Katie, and she says,
they look over her expectantly.
Right.
Like they're, okay,
like,
your
what
turn
do you
to
hate
say
about
something that you
yourself?
hate. Yeah.
And she says, I have bad breath in the morning. And I thought that's perfect. So when I was at this church camp, something was going on, and one of the girls was like, I have bad breath in the morning. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do too. And they looked at me and they were like, oh, it's just a quote from a movie. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So that was something. But I mean, honesty, authenticity, and
you were just trying to connect.
Yeah, I'm trying to join.
Absolutely.
Over bad breath. But
well, what was it about the movie, other than it just being a great movie,
it is,
that made you think, oh yeah, this is the one I want to do?
The biggest thing is, and it might sound contradictory, but how accurate it is. I mean, it is so accurate. It's exaggerated. But if you were to take all the exaggeration away from it, it's a thing. And I had a client's mom. I've got a client who's 13. And this mom the other day said, she's starting to be girl mean to me. And I had never clicked that that's a thing. And then I went home and told my husband, I was like, we can't have a girl because I don't want her to be girl mean to me, kind of snarky. And it's so real. I think the relationships people have, the parenting styles I see, how they impact kids, especially the parenting style is such a thing. And not having structure and order and rules in the house, what does that allow your child to do if you do have structure? That's the ideal, that things go certain ways. Now, of course, other things can throw it off, but just how accurate it is at its core, I think.
Yeah, I think there's so many levels to the movie. I don't know if there's like a single thread of a theme that we could like pick out.
Yeah.
But hopefully at this point, anybody that would be listening will have seen the movie.
Yeah.
If you haven't, I guess spoiler alerts, even though it came out, I think in 2004.
I think that's what it was.
Something like that. So 15-year-old movie, if you go past here, there's spoilers, but also just watch it.
Yeah, it's
on
worth
HBO.
the watch. Yeah. Yep.
So the general idea of the story is Katie, who is Lindsay Lohan, who looks so young and well rested.
I watched her show on MTV recently about the resort she opened in Greece. I don't think it's on anymore. Oh, it was sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was I think while we were watching it, I pulled up either the news app on my phone or I Googled or something, and some BuzzFeed article came up where it was like literally just a picture of maybe the 6 main people then and then now, and every one of them looks great, and it gets down to hers, and it's that one shot of her like with one of her eyes closed and that kind
in
of
the
deal.
car and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Actually, her real life is probably a good model of what, without structure,
I would
what
agree.
that will happen to a kid.
I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah. So her character, Katie, like, moves to wherever this town is, and her parents were zoologists in Africa. So she grew up as a kid over there, and then came over here and comes into this social structure.
Yeah.
That she is just has no idea how it works, and
Right.
I think it almost reminds me. Have you seen the Paddington movies?
Mm-mm.
I can't even begin to recommend them highly enough.
Okay.
Like, there's two,
Mm-hmm.
Paddington 1, Paddington 2.
He's the bear with the
He's
rain
the bear
stuff.
with the raincoat.
Okay.
Yes. Are you a crier?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. I can be if you
Okay.
catch me on a crying day.
Okay. So if it's a crying day, you'll definitely cry at
Okay.
both of these. If
Well,
it's
I
not,
cry
who
when
knows?
Groot dies in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Okay.
But
So
he's a
this might
sweet
get you.
fella.
This might get you.
I might be a crier and just
I
won't
had
admit
to-
it.
I had to convince Leigh-Ann to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a part in the first one where something happens with his being Paddington, pronouns pal, where something happens where he is sent to London to find people to now take care of him.
Oh.
And in the same way as, like, during World War II, there were children that were sent, and they would have a little letter or a sign around their neck
Yeah.
saying, take me in, or something
Yeah.
like that. He had something like that.
I
and
would cry.
He's standing on the train platform as the Brown family are walking by, and the dad was Hugh Dancy from Downton Abbey, and the mom is from something, but I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But as they're walking by, it's like showing them walking by, and then the camera then shows him, and above him is a lost and found sign.
Oh.
And the and found is it's not on, but the lost is lit up. It's like neon.
Yeah.
And then they walk by, and he says something to them, and the dad's like, yeah, it's okay. And he kind of gets the kids and the wife by.
Right.
And then there's like a beat, and then the wife walks back into the frame to, like, look at him, and then lost goes out and found comes on the sign.
Yeah.
And something about that hit Leigh-Ann, and she just like, "Buh," and then she was in, and then I didn't have to.
You didn't have to convince her anymore.
Yeah, and then she was looking forward to when the second one came out, which it's just, they're so perfect, and he is such an innocent character who I think assumes positive intent for everybody, and it's very important for him to be polite. And I think she reminded me a lot coming into this movie of, she's just assuming everybody has positive intent, and she's trying to be kind to everybody and that kind of thing, which doesn't last too long.
No,
but that's how
not
she
really.
she came into it.
Yeah.
And her parents are crying as she goes off to her first day of high school
At the age of 16.
at the age of 16.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm thinking, my whole family cried when I graduated college and left for my first job, so I get that.
Yeah.
It's a transition. It's
Yep.
tough.
Definitely.
So she walks into the school and is immediately met with this ecosystem of, I don't know, like subgroups of. Yeah. And I was having, like, flashbacks to middle school and high school when I was watching this, because I think what you said is right. It was eerily accurate.
Yeah, it is. It just exaggerates the truth behind it. People, they may say, well, I have clients who are teens. They'll be like, I know cliques don't exist. I'm like, no, they do. They do. And it's okay. I do. I think it's okay. But it's, because that to me is just a way of being accepted. You found people who you relate to,
It's
that
tribal.
you can feel right. I think every group has some sort of subgroup in it. And there's this negative connotation to it that it's not a good thing, but I don't think so.
I have memories of, like, in youth group at church, them talking about cliques and break it up and all this kind of stuff. And I think looking back now, I would love to travel back in time and say, like, oh, you're fighting a losing battle.
Right.
Trying to say
No
that.
doubt.
You got to, instead of doing that, know that it's human nature.
It is.
To find people who are like you.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be an exclusive thing. So I think it's one of those things where I think how many times with clients have we had to say, instead of fighting the thought or fighting whatever it is, you surrender to it. You recognize that it's there.
Right.
And it helps you move on from it.
Yeah. Just kind of accepting it and acknowledging it kind of takes the negative power away from it.
Yeah. It's the whole, like, don't think about a pink elephant, and then all of a sudden there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just go, okay, cool, pink elephant.
Right.
Here we go. But she gets there, and she starts seeing all of this. And I think it's when she goes to her math class that she first meets Janice and, oh, gosh.
Damien.
Yep.
Yes. I wanted to call him Ian, but it's Janice
Same.
Ian.
Yeah. That's
Damien.
exactly what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
And then they kind of act as her, I don't know, social Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, Janice gives her literally a map of, like, all of the different groups and their labels.
Yes.
Of the cafeteria, or was it the whole school?
I think the cafeteria, where each group sits in the cafeteria.
Which, was she doing that to convince her to be in their group?
I don't know. I think, I assume that Janice and Damien are, so Janice doesn't convince Katie to go against the plastics until she finds out Regina has spoken with her, I don't think. So if I were to think about it, I don't see any. I guess my assumption is with that question that there's this ill intent behind it.
Yeah, I was thinking more like, because when she does, you do have like the camera panning around as they're introducing. She calls her and Damien the coolest people that you'll ever know.
Right.
So I was just thinking, like, is it she's trying to, in her own way, say, come here.
Maybe, yeah. Because Regina, whenever Katie's sitting with them, calls Janice and Damien their table the art freaks. And I think at that point, Damien has baloney all over his face. And it's like a mask. I don't know. I mean, and I kind of think about when I was in middle school and high school, I was friends with all sorts of different groups. I had kind of a main group, but I was friends with, I always had someone in other groups, and I would interact with them and mingle with them. And I forgot where I was going with that.
Just talking about the different groups, and was Janice saying all of this to say, come be with us?
Yes. I wonder if she was, but the invitation, I think how nice it would have been to be invited into groups. And I think that's kind of how I was with people growing up. Is I don't know if I would have considered myself the coolest. I was kind of the one who wanted to be cool, but I don't think what was the cool? I don't think my parents allowed me to be the cool, based on what the cool kids were wearing, how they acted, what they went and did, who they were hanging out with. But so I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. But maybe it was her saying, come be with us. We're the cool people, and we'll help you navigate through this world.
I had like some thoughts while I was watching the movie that if I'm thinking back to like elementary school, middle school, high school, I remember in elementary school in 5th grade, like all of us running around the playground. I don't know if it was a playground. It was a big old field, and they were like playground equipment in some parts of the field.
Yeah. The designated little rock pit.
Yeah, but like all of us running around together. And I remember having a birthday party that year at the skating rink.
That's
couldn't
what's up.
skate at all, but had it there.
Yeah.
And then I remember in 6th grade, all of a sudden it was very obvious that there had been these lines drawn
Mm-hmm.
where those people are in that crowd now.
Right.
And I'm in this other crowd. And some of the people that were in the crowd I wasn't in had been at my birthday party the year before.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Leigh-Ann the other night, I wonder, in elementary school, 1st through 5th grade all together,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it was the introduction of another school, like you mixed populations,
Right.
that facilitated that division into groups.
Yeah.
Or like, what is it that causes that chemical reaction to start happening to where all of
Right.
a sudden now you're cool and you aren't? And
Yeah. I don't know. See, I experienced that in 5th grade. I remember the cool girls were the cool, popular ones from 5th grade until graduation of high school.
And was it like, did middle school have 5th grade attached to it, or?
No, it was
Okay.
separate. But as I'm thinking about it, I think one of the girls, one of the main popular ones, she had an older sibling. So I wonder if and I think she was kind of one of the cool ones. And I wonder if going into the school, I wonder if they already kind of knew the grouping and stuff moving into 6th grade and all of that. I don't know.
Yeah, the transitive property of being cool.
Mm-hmm. It's passed down from
Big sister's
generation to
cool,
generation.
So yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That is an interesting thing to think about.
That's the first place I saw it, was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
And I also, at least in my feelings, it kind of stuck around until I was probably in 11th or 12th grade when I got to the place where it wasn't as important to me.
Right.
It was still important, but I think at that point in time I became comfortable enough knowing, I don't want to say I was comfortable being who I was, because I certainly wasn't, but I
Right.
think knowing this is temporal,
Yeah.
and it's in a year we're all going to be scattered to the wind, and it
Yeah.
won't really matter anyway. And I also, but at
Yeah.
that time it's your world.
Yeah, it is. And it makes sense that you would be that affected by it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I see with clients is, I know that I'm going to be done soon. My parents tell me that, but it still bothers me. And I'm like, well, rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you're living in this day to day. How, it's when someone's telling you, oh, trust me, it'll be fine. I mean, it might stick with a part of you, but it's hard to just let that part overwhelm what you're experiencing every day.
Yeah, and I wonder is that minimizing it all to say that to a person? Just trust me, it's going to be fine.
I think it could be, depending on who and how,
Yeah.
to kind of minimize the experience and the feeling, and like, oh, don't worry about it, it'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, yeah, it might, but what's going on right now today?
Because I remember even being a kid in high school and not knowing anything about anything, much less having clinical training. Like, I remember having conversations. I remember my mom saying to me something like, I don't remember the exact words, but basically like, well, this is just school stuff. It'll be, whatever.
Right.
And I remember at the time thinking, yeah, but this is my world.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you got bills that you're paying for our family, and you're keeping us fed and clothed and all that. But like, this is,
It's your job
for
right
8
now.
hours a day, I'm there, struggling with all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And so that's what I'm dealing with. So it does matter.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So she gets into the school, and after she meets Janice and Damien, and in the cafeteria sees the other tribes at work, gets invited over to Regina's table.
The plastics.
Yeah. And I think they have like a voiceover going through who the 3 main plastics are. So super weird. I love pulling up IMDb on my phone like while I'm watching one of these and reading there's a trivia section that you can read.
I've seen it. I haven't really looked through
Yeah.
it.
So like pretty much all of the main cast, the only one that is the part that she originally auditioned for is oh my gosh, Gretchen Wieners.
Oh, I love Gretchen
Like
Wieners,
originally
man.
Lindsay Lohan was Regina George. And Rachel McAdams, I think, was maybe Katie.
I could see that. And maybe from The Notebook, there's just this softness with.
And I think Amanda Seyfried at one point was even Katie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just can't imagine her that.
This was her first movie.
Was it really?
Yeah.
The best part there's so many good parts with her, but saying that her breasts can tell when it's going to rain, and then she corrects herself.
Well, when it is
well,
raining.
Actually, when it's raining. And I'm like, that's just...
She's not wrong.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, I mean, maybe delusional at a certain point, but she corrects herself. She comes back to reality.
It's true. It's true. Also, Rachel McAdams is 8 years older than Lindsay Lohan. And in real life, at the time of filming the movie, Amy Poehler is only 7 years older than Rachel McAdams.
Gosh.
And yet they're supposed to be, friends, and they're supposed to be mother and daughter.
Yeah.
And I always wondered why Rachel McAdams wore such a bad wig during the movie.
Oh, was it a wig?
Yeah.
My eyesight might not have been good. I just thought she dyed it blonde, and I thought blonde is not... Maybe it's also her brows are blonde or something.
Yeah, it's always the hairline that gives it away for me.
Yeah.
So she gets invited to sit at the table, and I think as they talk, that's the whole, you're from Africa, right? Well, why are you white?
Yes, that's a good one, too. You can't just ask people why they're white, Karen. It's like, okay, yeah.
But I think that they invite her... back, or at the end say, do you want to keep sitting? And then they lay out all these rules.
Right. The pink shirt, the sweats.
We wear pink on Wednesdays. We only wear jeans or sweats on Fridays.
I think you can only wear sweats one day a week.
You can only have a ponytail one day a week.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I feel
something.
like the others were casual Friday kind of vibe. That's what it put off to me. But I mean, I think basically hey, if you want to get in, this is the contract,
right,
that you're going to sign.
Yeah.
Do you have any of your clients that have anything like that where they feel like, because I know that, so when I first moved up here to go to school, I moved into a house with two other guys, and one of the guys was from here, grew up here, from here, never lived anywhere else.
Yeah.
And he was a volunteer at a local church in the youth group, and had been at that point for 20-something years,
wow.
forever.
Yeah.
Forever. And I remember he would always tell me about the pressure that, especially where, I mean, he was talking about kids, I assumed they were all coming from Williamson and Davidson County. The pressure that they're under to perform.
Yeah.
And to get into a college, but they're already thinking about that in middle school.
Yeah, I have that a lot.
Do you feel like with some of the teens that you're meeting with that they're already, and the scene that we're talking about, really social rules, but there's a performance aspect to that.
100%.
That they're dealing with those kinds of things as well?
Yeah. I have plenty of clients who 8th grade, sometimes 7th, this debilitating anxiety and fear that I'm not going to be able to go to whatever school, that I'm not going to be where everyone else is, type thing. That I don't think a lot of people are super authentic in middle school and high school about their struggles. And I think that can force kids to perform, to put on a show of, okay, well, nothing is maybe it is how I'm presenting, but not fully. And it made me, there was, I think it was the scene we're talking about where she's eating lunch with the plastics, and maybe it was a little later on, but I think Gretchen Wieners said you wouldn't buy or wear a skirt without asking your friends if it looks good on you first. And
this was I think it was a little later, but she was talking about she had just met Aaron Samuels,
right?
And so hey, can I, what do you guys think of, and all that? And she was saying, if you like a boy, you have to
get our approval first.
Present it to the tribunal.
Right.
And, yeah.
Get approval. And there is a client that recently was talking about even if she loves the outfit, she'll text her friends first and ask what they think. And if they don't like it, she won't wear it, even though she loves it. And I don't think I experienced that type of I don't want to say insecurity, but dependency on approval, I think, so much. I've always been pretty confident in who I am and what I like. Of course, fitting in, wanting to do that, but not letting something dictate me that much, someone's approval dictating me that much. And I just see that through this whole movie, and I see that with clients, that how upsetting that can be, to feel like you have to put aside what you like, how you want to be to fit in. Because I think there's also, it might be a line in the movie or the idea of, I think Katie later on says it, something about rather be miserable than not with the popular, fitting in with the popular crowd or whatever group it is. And I think to an extent that's true no matter what the demographic is or age group, but especially in adolescence, that someone would rather fit in and be accepted than to be themselves. Because I love individuality, but I don't think it's as celebrated, especially in middle and high school as I would hope it is.
Oh yeah, which I think is like a survival skill.
Totally.
Because I don't think it's possible, or it's very rare for a person to really know who their true self is at such a young age. So I think you find safety in the pack.
Right.
And if I can just get in under the protection of, this group, this pack mentality, then I'll be okay and I'll have what it takes to get through this.
But it's a really good skill to have, practice it. And I think that's with adolescence of practicing. What do you like? What don't you like? What works for you, what doesn't. And I think that's a necessity to figure out who you are later on in life.
I just think it's so rare, at least in my experience, for, I think, parents to do that intentionally with their kid.
Yeah.
I think some do it accidentally, which is great.
Yeah.
I think, and it probably has something to do with, do the parents know enough of who they are, and do they know how they figured it out?
Right.
Because if they got there accidentally, then it's tough to lead the kid.
Model that. And I think are parents able to put their own stuff aside, or their own pride or their own image aside to let their kid figure out just even style. I think that's such a huge thing, being able to express yourself with style within limits. And I think that's one thing I see in this movie and in adolescence of how, and specifically girls, but I hear it with guys too, but how are girls dressing? And I sound super conservative right now in terms of style, but what I see a lot of, and in this movie, are girls who look like they're in their 20s, who are actually 16, 17, where they are dressing so mature that that's great if that's the style, but is it, and maybe that's how they want to be, but I don't think it's age appropriate. And when I look at behaviors and styles and things, I look at how age appropriate is it. And what I'm seeing a lot of times is it's just not appropriate. And
is
I think
I mean, this is, I don't know if there's a more crude way to say this.
You're good.
Is it a dress for the job you want kind of situation?
Exactly.
Are they saying I want, and I mean, this is like a total minefield that we're kind of wading into.
Yeah.
But like, do you think that it's a conscious thing of I'd like to have attention from my body?
Right.
So I'm going to show this off.
Right.
And that's, obviously, no matter how a woman dresses, like that is no excuse for a guy to treat her
exactly. Yeah.
Anyway.
Definitely.
But I remember thinking as we were watching this last night, at least at the high school I went to, I don't think that anything that the main characters, the plastics and Katie towards the end at least, wear would pass at the high school I went to.
They did. I remember that. And I told Cade, my husband, last night, I was like, they're spot on with the 2004 style. Where I remember the velvet, juicy couture jumpsuits that had juicy on the butt. I always wanted those, but my mom was like, hell to the no. In a very Southern Baptist way, she said that.
Did she say bless your heart?
Not quite, but it would have been bless your heart if you wear them. And so that style, I remember the plaid skirt there, and that was a style. And I think it was right before dress code got really, really, I think not rigid, but they were kind of cracking down on it for whatever. I'm sure there are many reasons.
Yeah, you'd have to swing that pendulum the other way eventually.
Right. And I remember that being the style. And if it wasn't the mini skirt, which a lot of times it was at school, it was most certainly what you were wearing when you weren't at school.
So, I mean, definitely, she, or at least the plastics are saying, hey, you want to be a part of this group? Mm-hmm. Here's the uniform. Here's the code of conduct. Here's what you got to do. And she certainly, I wouldn't say at first chooses to conform, but ends up there. I think probably as she begins to notice that she is gaining stature, that she decides to go for it.
Right.
Go all in.
And everyone wants to be liked at some level. People who are like, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I don't believe that. But how much does it impact and influence who you are and how you are? And
because there's a cost.
Right. And I think that's something that you see with Katie is she likes the attention. She's getting it. She's liked. And it's just this natural progression of showing who you're around. You're influenced by who you're around. Mm-hmm. And so if she's around the plastics a lot, and a lot more than Janice and Damien, who seem to have decent morals, I think. I mean,
I don't know about morals, considering the mission that she sends on, but they seem to be more comfortable being themselves.
Yes, yeah. And I think it's the sabotage, it makes sense. And when you think about it, it kind of feels good to get back at someone. Now, do we all do it? No. The idea of wanting to get back at someone can be a really fun idea, but again, at what cost? But just the progression of Katie and who she's around the most, that is certainly going to influence how you are, who you want to be, or how you want to be portrayed. And it shows up so much.
Yeah, and I think she ends up learning how to play the game as well. Like, I think, she got, what did she call it? A 3-way phone call attack or something?
Yeah, her first 3-way phone call.
Yeah, and then she perpetrates it right back a little bit later on.
Yeah.
She kind of like enters in as this like blank canvas and then just starts collecting.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe I was in college when I was able to articulate this in this particular way, but being in high school, I used to say was just about trying on different identities, like you tried on different outfits.
Exactly.
And so, like, I remember when I was in high school, I think maybe it was when I was a busboy, but I used part of the paycheck. I went out and I decided that I was going to be a skater.
I had that phase.
So I went out and bought the Jeanco jeans, like the real big, legs.
Wide leg the whole way.
Yep. And I bought like one of those necklaces with the metal balls.
And
then these sunglasses with yellow lenses that weren't really sunglasses because you could just perfectly see.
Yeah, it probably made the sun brighter.
Probably, yeah. And then I think like a Superman t-shirt, which I would wear today. But at the time, that's what I thought.
With the whole thing.
Yeah. And I remember getting that and showing up at school one day thinking, well, now I'll just be this person.
Right. I'm wearing it, so now I am.
Yeah. And that, it didn't work out that way. Right. And I think maybe I might have worn those jeans one more time. But not even just that, but in trying to sit with different people, trying to talk in different ways.
Right.
You know, maybe I choose one day and I'm going to use a bunch of curse words, or one day I'm going to be aloof, or whatever it is. Like, I'm just going to try to figure out who I am by becoming all
what
of these
feels
different
right.
types of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I realized I was doing it at the time.
Yeah, I think it's an organic thing that happens, and unless someone points it out to you or something happens where it's just obvious, it just happens, and it's a wonderful thing that happens.
Yeah, I think I look back and I see maybe little remnants, little nuggets that I took from each thing to kind of help construct who I was, which I think is more than likely a natural part of development as a person.
Healthy. Yeah.
And how do you get introduced to anything,
right?
You know, unless it's something like that. What was it? We watched, I think, Field of Dreams a couple of weeks ago for an episode. And at the end of it, Leigh-Ann was like, "Hey, do you think you're gonna throw the ball with our kid?" Who we don't have yet. Like, we don't have kids. But
I say that stuff, and I don't have a kid either.
Yeah. and I said, you know, like, I mean, I never. I got to play baseball like twice in my whole for a baseball team. Like, to go, I had 2 seasons, and they weren't concurrent because I was always in trouble at school. So like, for me, baseball never had that much of an attachment.
Right.
For her brother and her dad, it was life.
Right.
Like, huge baseball guys. Yeah. And so I was like, you know, I mean, I definitely want to connect with our kid, but I think for me, having been a musician and an artist growing up, it might be I get our kid a guitar and I sit down and I work with them on how to learn it. I said, but really, because like one of my best friends, who was one of my groomsmen, he has 4 kids. He's got 3 daughters and a son, and he was a giant, big time soccer player. Yeah, like coming up through high school and such. And so all of his girls play soccer. And I remember saying to him, like, "Hey, why don't you try getting one of your kids a guitar? Yeah, like, why don't you try
it out,
letting them have something besides." You know, and then here I am, you know, in this conversation after Field of Dreams saying, "Oh, I'm going to get him a guitar. They're going to be way into that." And I just thought, oh, you know, I bet part of the job as a parent is like almost like taking them to a buffet.
Yeah.
And just introducing them.
Yep.
So like, does the kid like football? Do they like baseball? Do they like art? Do they like making movies? Do they like photography? Like, and just trying to unlock whatever it is in them.
Yeah.
And I suppose at some point in the relationship, it will be, we're going to do things together that I like. Yeah. And then at some point, something will get unlocked, and they'll go, "Oh no, Dad, I like this." Yeah. Go, cool. So we're going to do that now.
Yeah. That's one thing I admire. One of the things I admire about my parents is I remember my mom and dad saying, "We don't care what you do, but you need to go do something. So we don't care what sport it is, what after school activity it is, within reason, but we don't care what it is. Just go try it."
I'm on the shoplifting team.
Yay! No. What'd you get? And that it provided such a great opportunity, really, to do things. And my parents would always say, "Just try it. The worst thing that can happen is no, that you don't like it or you didn't make it." And I think that's something I've taken with me throughout life, is even asking questions about stuff or applying for things. The worst thing that can happen is no, so why not just try? And there's something just really wonderful about being realistic with it too. You might not make it, but if it's worth your time, you can try it. And to be able to learn how to maneuver through not making things or not doing well at something and saying, "Yeah, I would like to be better at it. It's just not something I'm skilled at. What could I do that could provide me fun that I am good at, if that's something that's important to me?"
Yeah. I think especially when you're growing up, to have somebody help you find a passion, I think that aids in development as a person as well.
For
like,
sure.
I've got a buddy now that basically is saying to his son, "You have to find something."
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what it is, but you need you need to find something.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think his son is pushing back on him a little bit right now. Part of that might just be the dad-son thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I kind of wish that at some point, you know, my parents would have said, like, hey, what do you love?
Yeah.
How do we help you get there?
Yeah.
Like, what are you, which, I mean, my parents helped me so much in getting, you know,
Right.
everywhere, but in the sense of just unlocking that passion,
Yeah.
I think would have been so cool.
Well,
And so, yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say, trying on different identities in high school. That was like kind of
Yeah.
my way of trying that.
Yeah. And it works. And just the opportunity, that's what I always think is important. And my parents would ask us the same thing. And I think this is important. To the movie, my parents would ask us, what do you want in friendships? What do you want in relationships? So intimate relationships as well. And to think about going beyond just appearances and stuff. So what do you look for in a friend? What do you know that you've had a friend like this before? What did you like? What did you not like about that friendship? How to set boundaries with friends, that you don't have to be friends with everyone. You can be polite to everyone.
Did your parents say that to you?
Yeah, I think later on, like I always had to invite everyone to the birthday party when I was little. But I remember in high school, there was this girl who, I was always the type of person, if someone was the underdog, I was going to butt in and stand up for them when it really was not my place to do. But I don't like injustice.
Yeah. Are you into Enneagram stuff?
Kind of. Being at Refuge, I've learned to be a little bit.
There's one of them, and I don't remember what the number is, but it's called the Defender.
So I'm an 8.
Okay.
I'm a very healthy 8.
Oh, that's why you love Alicia.
I think maybe. And I learned she's an 8. And I always feel like I have to justify being an 8 with following up, but I'm a healthy 8. Because the first time I realized I took the thing, first time I took it, I made sure I wasn't going to, I made myself better than what I was, and I was a 2.
I did that with the sorting hat quiz on Pottermore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I leaned into Gryffindor way too hard at the beginning.
I've never watched Harry Potter or read it.
Wow.
I know. I'm probably one of the only ones. And I could go on about how that's gotten me in trouble.
You'll get bored one day. You'll do it.
Probably. And, I wasn't allowed to read it when it first came out, so that was a thing. I think that's what it could have been. But an 8 challenger, I don't know where I was going with this.
They need to be against. You stuck up for people.
Yeah, stuck up for people. But there was this one girl who, she, I was polite to her, but she was very possessive, not possessive. She had no boundaries. She would constantly text me every single thing. And I don't like when people are lonely. That tears me up. But her, she would text me, hey, guess what? And I was like, what? She's like, I just ate a sandwich. Like that type of thing. It was excessive. And it became exhausting. And my mom said, you don't have to be friends with everyone. You don't have to, you can be polite to her, but if it's excessive, you can set that boundary and just, maybe not respond to her as much, or you could be direct in that. But I think the way I did it was I just kind of slowly stopped responding as often. Not full on. I have done that.
You off-ramped her. It was the slow.
Yeah. It was, just couldn't do it anymore. But I think that was something that was useful for me that I don't, because it was exhausting to me. It was taken away from my life just to make sure she was not lonely.
Yeah.
But she was suffocating.
Yeah. I don't know if I realized that until much later on. Maybe even into when I was in therapy myself. I also think, kind of from what you're saying, a good example of kids today are going to be facing things that, even just you said, do you remember when that was? Was that high school?
Yeah.
Yeah. So no one that I knew had a cell phone in high school when I
Right.
was in high school. I remember being out of college and into my first job when I got a first text message from somebody.
Really?
And I literally called them back and said, "How'd you do that?"
Yeah.
And
Oh,
then
that's funny.
And then I found out it was like 50 something cents every time that happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Quit, don't do it again." But how'd you do
Right.
it? Like,
yeah, I want to know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
don't do it.
So, and no social media in high school,
Right.
barely the internet, and like computers inside the library.
Right.
No method of communicating that they used in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, except phone. Or even that kids are using today, did I have to navigate and learn how to do back when I was in high school. And
Yeah.
yet it was still, I mean, so tough to navigate the jungle back then.
Yeah.
And I've said many times, if social media would have been around back then,
Oh.
I may not have made it out.
See, it started getting big. I remember MySpace came out, which it's funny because I'll have clients be like, "Have you ever heard of that thing, MySpace?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm pretty sure I still have
I was
a
a
profile."
pioneer.
Oh, yeah. It's like Tom was my friend.
Hours on my top 8.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was not what it is now when I was in school. And I mean, it was there, it was prevalent,
Yeah.
it was a thing, but it was not what it is. And I just cannot. I mean, even the kids who are, I would consider great kids, get sucked into all the negative things about it, and so easily. There's absolutely no way, and I could have done that.
Yeah. So when I was in high school and middle school, at school, there were people that picked on me.
Yeah. Yep.
And called me names. Like,
Mhm.
even in high school, I remember I had some class where we had to do debates in.
Oof.
And we did them in the library. And there was a time where, like in a teen movie, 4 basketball players surrounded me in a circle and were shoving me back and forth in the middle of
Oh.
the circle. And in the movie, the camera would be like up above and you would be
Yeah,
seeing
you'd see it
the
all.
kid like ping-ponging around. That really happened. But
Oh,
that only
man.
happened at school.
Yeah.
And there weren't such things as social media
Right.
or even at that time texting to where they could get to me outside of school.
Right.
And so now with the introduction of all that kind of stuff, on
Mhm.
top of the potential for, I don't know if I want to call it bullying, but maybe bullying, but
Yeah.
then you get like the, and certainly, you know, the comparison stuff happening at school back then
Definitely.
too, but now you've got access to the comparison game online.
Right.
So like, maybe not what would you do to help a kid navigate it, like there's one way,
Right.
but are there things that can be offered to a kid that could at least help them?
Yeah. I think, and I was kind of picked on as well, but I would get picked on, but I would stand up to so many people as well. And I don't think it affected me as much as it does some people. And I think and I've talked to my parents about this before, I think a big part of that is my home life, as chaotic as it was, and sometimes felt like hell because of all the illness and stuff going on. My parents were nurturing, supportive, honest, loving, fun parents. And if I were to look at that, I think that was I know it's a protective factor.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you can have those things and still be affected. And I was affected by stuff, but I didn't let it impact me in the way that I see it impacting some people. And
Attachment-wise, like you had a safe harbor at home.
Oh, 100%.
So no matter what happened out there, you knew when I get back with my
Right.
people.
And I think humor, my family has a great sense of humor. And being able to laugh at some of the stuff, like, that's so ridiculous. Like, are you kidding me? Someone would do that? So I think about those things when I think about bullying and social media stuff and comparison of how secure is the person within themselves. You know, are they able to say, yeah, that would be nice to have those things, and I like those things and I want them, but I don't have to have them to be happy with stuff. Or this person is going to say some really horrible things about me online, and it's on there and it's not going to go away. You know, if it does, well, it's probably already, you know, a screenshot of it. But I think it really goes back to the self-worth and the families. You know, because if I'm getting that from peers, you know, it's like, but I'm not getting that everywhere. You know, I'm getting it at school and at home from online stuff. And it might be taking a break from online stuff or even deleting people or and I've had to tell clients, what would it be like if you asked your friends not to tell you what these people are saying about you? Because, yeah, it's nice to know what people are saying, but is it doing more harm than good? Mm-hmm. Because I think if we don't have the evidence in front of us, I mean, it's a whole thing. We assume people are saying something about us.
Out of sight, out of mind?
Kind of, but where's the evidence? So if I don't have evidence that this person was talking about me as I walked by, you know, I'm assuming they are, what could I tell myself? Oh, maybe they actually liked my outfit. They could be talking about me, but they like the way I'm dressed today.
That sounds like Brene Brown. The story I'm telling myself is.
Yeah, and it's just CBT. I mean, in that way, I think of what are you thinking? How are you feeling? What are you going to do about it? And so if we're able to reframe the thinking, then it's probably going to decrease the distress. Now, if you're seeing it for sure online, I mean, it's hard to be like, oh, I'm not accurate with what I'm thinking. Yeah, you are, because you're seeing it. But if you're able to delete that or even block the person, you know, you might be a prude for doing it, but is it going to make you feel better? And it really, I think, just goes back to the parents. How do the parents, not fully, but how do the parents support them and help them maneuver through it? Mm-hmm. It's, like I was left at prom, one of my junior year. And I've told this story, and to me it's funny now. I was pretty pissed. I don't think I was sad, but I was pissed the night it happened. But the way my parents approached it and helped me approach it.
You were left by your date?
Yes! And here's what's funny. I hope he's listening. What's hysterically funny, my parents had friends over that night, and so I had to use my ex-boyfriend's phone because my phone was in my bag, which was in my date's purse.
So the ex was not the date.
Right. The ex was just a friend.
Right.
And so I was like, hey, can I borrow your phone? So-and-so just left me. And he was like, what? And so I called my parents. My parents were like, what in the world? And apparently when they hung up with me, they told the friends who were over, and they all died laughing. And I was like, what? And then, but my mom followed it up with, we thought it was so funny because you looked great. You're a good date. Like, who in the world would leave you?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, who the hell would leave me? Well, he would. And he said he couldn't find me. We had made eye contact. So my parents took me to meet up with him to get my stuff. And then he called my phone. My dad says he admires this about the guy. He called my phone to, my dad answered it because I was just so mad, and said, hey, I didn't leave her. And my dad was like, was she in your truck whenever you left? And he was like, no, sir. And he was like, okay, so you left her. But that could have been a really shaming and defining moment for me.
Yeah.
But I think the way my parents approached it helped me approach it that way. Like, we went as friends. I mean, we weren't even really, it was just a date as friends. I liked the way I looked. I thought I was, I knew I was a great, well, I thought I was a great date. I guess he didn't. I'm fun. I'm smart. I have all these great qualities. So why let that one thing define me? And how funny it is that he did. I mean, it is funny now. And I've told people that, and they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, no, it is funny though. And people are like, but it's not. And I'm like, okay, well,
I
it
think,
is.
You know, first, your people showed up when you needed them to.
Right, exactly.
And second, they just affirmed you, and they, I guess, in a way, defended you. Like, I like that your dad answered the phone and was like, hey, reality check. Was she with you when you left?
Right.
No, you left her.
Right.
I'm so curious about, I want the tea on that story. Because, like, what what you're saying, this is the proper reaction. Like, how are you going to leave your date? Did you guys have an argument? Like, what?
No. Here's what I think happened. Like, it is just, I haven't really the last time I told this story was at Refuge. We were talking about embarrassing moments, and I got the response of not laughter. Like, I think it is funny. And I'm sure people are probably like, poor girl. It's like, she's just doing this out of self-defense or something. But we went as friends, and I wonder if he liked me more than I liked him and assumed it was more of a date because I was dancing with other people and he was talking to people, and we went as friends, and I wonder if he was upset or hurt the fact that I wasn't solely with him the whole time. But it's like, that's the only thing I could think of. There was no argument. Maybe, there was no, So,
well, speaking as a former high school boy myself, I will say that there's not a group of people that really handles their feelings worse than high school boys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he was, crushing on you and felt like he was, not inadvertently, but maybe like passively rejected, like he just expected, it was going to be you guys dancing and stuff. Not in an approval kind of way, but I could certainly understand him being like,
I do too.
I'm getting out of here.
Right.
This is not what I thought it was going to be.
I'm out.
Yeah, forget this.
Yeah. Good one.
It's definitely what
definitely
what he was thinking there.
I'm sure it was.
That's interesting. Yeah. I love that your parents showed up. That's great, though.
I do too. They, there are many times where it was not as wonderful, but overall, I have to say, authoritative, loving, that's what it, I think, has always boiled down to, regardless of, what I have done or they have done, which they really haven't done anything. As an adolescent, being just total loser parents.
Yeah.
Because they're not cool. They're not the cool mom.
Nobody has cool parents, though.
Well, my cousins do.
We all think that other people's parents are cool.
Oh, totally.
I'm willing to bet. I mean, I can't guarantee. But, like, if you ask anybody, John Q. Public out in the street, nobody thinks their own parents are cool.
I would agree. To an extent, I would agree. And if they do think their parents are cool, I just can guarantee you they're not a healthy parent. Yeah, I think my parents were just, I always knew that they loved me and that they want and they wanted what's best for me. And they were honest, and not in a brutally honest way, but they were honest. And what I absolutely loved was they would tell me what they thought. They would tell me what they would suggest doing, but they would let me do it. And sometimes I think the guilt a kid may feel would go towards a certain direction. But when I went in the direction of what they would suggest, it would typically work out better than otherwise. And it just, overall, I think great parents.
Wow. That still sounds like so much of your experience and able to navigating it was based on the knowledge and the security that came from the love that your parents kind of showed.
Yeah, yeah.
Not necessarily getting it right all the time, but certainly in moments of hurt, being able to come back around and repair.
Right.
Let's say that, we've got a kid who maybe doesn't have that kind of home life. Is there anything you could think besides therapy that could be offered to that kid to help him navigate?
I think finding someone who could fit that adult role to help get your needs met in a healthy enough way. So if your parents aren't providing it for you, is there going to be a teacher? Is there going to be a coach? And one way I like to look at it, and I think you could even do it with parents, of who on TV is the ideal parent like you want to be, or who is the ideal mentor? What do you like about them? Who in your life is closest to that? Because in adolescence, you grow up, your parents have all the knowledge, they're always right, whatever it is. Adolescence, it's my parents don't really know anything. My friends know what's up. Well, typically they don't have the most accurate information to give. And so if there's a way to, have just good friends who, again, it might be looking at TV shows. Who are our friends that you think provide support and care and fun? I think fun's important, and have goals that you want, maybe the same futuristic goals. So,
well, you mentioned earlier, like spending time with people and becoming like them.
Yeah.
So if you don't have maybe the most solid home life, which is where you're going to spend a lot of time.
Right.
Maybe helping a kid to develop the skill to choose who they're with.
Yeah.
The other amounts of time.
Right. What is this friend group getting you, or what is this friend group doing for you? How are your needs being met through them? But also, what are the benefits? What are the risks of that friend group? So maybe if they're smoking and drinking and they get caught often, or even if they don't, but typically I think it requires getting caught or some sort of consequence for something to change that. Okay, so the need being met might be connection and belonging, but the risk is getting in serious trouble and having some legal troubles. So is there a way to find that belonging and connection in other ways besides the group that's drinking and smoking?
Yeah.
So can you find that in a sports team, an art club, whatever it is?
And I even like, the thought of, or the suggestion of finding a mentor.
Yeah.
And there's several even like organizations. Like certainly if the kid is a part of a church.
Right.
Like I know my parents split up when I was 14. I was a sophomore. And for the 3 years left in high school, I just had a few like adult men at my church who really stepped in and showed a lot of care and concern for me. And I don't know if I would have been able to keep going if I wouldn't have had that. And so if you're a part of a church, there's probably adults there that can help out with that. If not, there's organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters, as well as I'm sure there's other mentoring organizations that would be something to look into.
Definitely.
I don't know if it's possible to have too many adults that care about a kid.
I would agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've definitely, like, I don't know how much we've talked about the movie, but the movie is, like, certainly a great example of just the perils of navigating coming online socially. Yeah. And I don't even mean that literally, but, like, certainly today, literally would fit that as well.
Yeah.
In the end, what snaps Katie out of it? Like, she has the party, she throws up on the boy.
That I thought about that.
Was it Regina getting hit by a bus?
I like to think it would take less than that to snap someone out of it, but it may have been her getting hit by a bus. Well, it actually was. Because at that point, I think, no, it was the burn book. And that actually takes me to a piece of advice my mom has always told me: never write it down. And I think that's genius. Never write it down. And I'm like, oh, totally with this burn book. Never write it down.
That's receipts.
Yeah, right? Depends on what you're writing. But what I realized was, so I'm all about structure, rules, consequences, yet it doesn't have to be the hardcore consequence, but some sort of consequence to enforce rules and structure. What I realized was when everything started going down, I believe Katie's parents grounded her. They had never grounded her before. The dad didn't even know what grounding was. But he knew it needed to happen.
I was very familiar when I was a kid.
Oh yeah. Same here. Big time. And I think that what I see is rules started coming into place, where she had to get that test sign that she failed, and she was dumbing herself down for a guy.
Oh, that was painful.
Yeah, it was. I mean, come on, being smart's cool.
Yeah.
I remember in 7th grade, that's when I realized being smart is actually really cool. That it was not something looked down upon.
I went straight to, though, like, and I think I even said to Leigh-Ann, like, gosh, I hope our daughter never compromises who she is to get somebody like her. In fact, I hope she goes the other way. I hope she tells everybody how smart she is and they all hate her.
Yes.
And then she never has any friends and she just stays with us forever.
It's fine. I think that would be a wonderful way to be. But I think what happened was consequences. Things caught up to her.
Yeah.
She was having to be held accountable for some of the things because Miss Norbury, I think, wasn't letting her off the hook as much.
Yeah.
And she takes ownership for some of I think all of it, even though not all of it was her.
It wraps up really nicely.
I think so too. The structure, the consequences, the rules being enforced created, I mean, it said you can't keep doing what you're doing because it's not working for you. And I think there's that freedom of and I've talked to parents about this, let them do what they want if it's working for them. Now, if grades start to decline, if they're starting to get into trouble or they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, that's when it's a really good time to say, okay, you gotta figure something else. And of course, intervene before then, but to allow them to make choices themselves. And it's kind of the same thing with Regina and the plastics. They give her that power by following those rules, where once they start to set boundaries, like she started gaining the weight, she wore sweatpants on a day she wasn't allowed to wear sweatpants.
You can't sit with us.
Right. You can't sit with us. And that was setting a boundary. Like, hey, you said this is the rule. Now this is the rule. We're not changing it because you're not following the rule anymore. Yeah. And so the power dynamic shifts. And I think it's rules, structure, boundaries, order. The world operates with structure and order. Yeah. So kids need to as well.
And I think that is an interesting contrast between Regina, her apparent family life. Mm-hmm. I think back to, they go to her home and the bedroom that she's in is clearly the master bedroom. And
right.
She goes, yeah, it was my mom and dad's, but I made them switch.
Yeah. And the little sister watching Missy Elliott Milkshakes music video and then Girls Gone Wild and mimicking the Girls Gone Wild piece.
Yeah.
That to me says anything goes. And of course kids are going to do whatever they want, and it's the parents' role to help them make healthy, wise decisions.
Yeah, my mentor, Dr. David Olshine, who ended up marrying Leigh-Ann and I, mm-hmm. he was the head of the youth ministry department at the college I went to. Yeah. Like, still today does coaching workshops for parents, and he always kind of had this model of, in parenting, you got to be okay with going into different phases. Mm-hmm. So, like, when your kid is born as a very young child, you are controlling everything.
Right,
so you're making every decision.
Yep.
What they eat, how they dress, where they go, all this. At some point, you move into a coaching role. Mm-hmm. So you're on the sidelines, they're in the game, you're barking out plays.
Right.
This kind of thing. And then beyond that, you move into a consulting role.
Yeah.
To where they're doing everything and you're available if they need you.
Right.
And you're always welcome. But you're on your own, but like it's your life. And when you need me, I'm here for you and stuff. And he said a lot of parents, it's really tough to make those transitions. Mm-hmm. But I think, the movie shows so clearly to just let them run free.
Right.
Isn't really going to work. And I think it's an interesting display of the way that Katie's family worked in this old environment,
Right.
worked in the old environment. And then to come into the new environment, things had to change.
Exactly. Yeah.
She was changing. And so
Yep.
the way, talk about systems and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like the system had to change
Yeah.
because of that. And at the end, the discipline that her parents were giving her, and that was I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Leigh-Ann, it probably was. But just talk about the difference between discipline and punishment.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
as parents, they were disciplining her. They weren't punishing her.
Right.
I think punishment is along the lines of, like, you deserve.
Yeah.
And it's not that, but it's like they're trying to be bumpers on the bowling alley, so that when the ball starts to go towards one of the gutters, it's going to help kind of keep it steered into the middle there.
Yeah.
And that's really what Katie's parents were doing at the end. And I think even the tiny little bit that we see after that part where she's getting grounded and stuff, they're not putting a cover over her to mute her or prevent her from being her. They're just trying to guide her.
Exactly.
They're trying to keep her out that fire.
Yeah.
Which I think in the end, anybody would need.
Yeah. And I think they tried to be involved. And I think that's important too, where the couple of scenes that we see of them interacting, I think it's her first and second day of school. They ask her how it's going, what was it like, and a very stereotypical response of fine, bad, whatever, one word answer. Yeah. But I see an interest and them trying to engage in her and being present. And I watched that part, and then right before Regina gets hit by the bus, I thought it was interesting that Katie and Regina are arguing in the street very loudly. And in the background, you see Regina's mom on the phone. And I can only imagine what would it have been like if Katie, her mom, was in the background and there was this screaming match in the middle of the road? Would she have put the phone down and said, paid attention, watched what was going on, maybe even seen the bus come along and gotten them out of the way? But I think it's just a very exaggerated, but maybe accurate example of how involved is the parent. And do they know what's going on in their kid's life, and are they going to be there and know that this massive screaming match is happening in front of them?
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's certainly why a lot of these movies speak so much to us. They're all exaggerated to the nth degree, but sometimes that's what it takes to get through.
Yeah.
And communicate something to us, because, I mean, rarely are we going to be in a screaming match with somebody in the middle of the road,
right?
And somebody's going to get run over by a bus,
right?
I mean, certainly it'll happen some, but not,
not
often.
Darwin.
Yeah, not often,
right?
So I think it catches our attention, helps us to talk about things that maybe wouldn't come to mind otherwise, either because we think they're so mundane or because since it's so much a part of our lives. I know for me, even though I did face a lot of stuff in high school, it was my everyday. So I don't know if I would have thought this is unusual and I should talk to somebody.
Right.
I would have just thought, well, this is just what navigating high school's like.
And that, like you said earlier, survival. I mean, if you were to focus on every little thing that could be an impact or really affecting who you are, if you were to focus on it, then you might not be able to function well.
Yeah.
But if you're able to say, this is my everyday life, some of it sucks, but I'm okay in this, I can survive and make it out, then you're able to function and it serves you well.
Yeah. Cool. Oh. So let's say that there was somebody listening to the show today who maybe they fit that pocket of people that you love to be with and treat, or maybe they have somebody that they love, be it a kid or a friend who fits into that pocket. How could they get a hold of you if they wanted to see you as a therapist?
Yeah, so I have a private practice here in Franklin. My website is esecounseling.com. My email is esedwardscounseling@gmail.com. And yeah, it's probably the best way.
Nice. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thank you for
coming
having
today.
me. It's been wonderful.
Absolutely, it has been. And I feel like, honestly, we could probably do 3 episodes on Mean Girls.
I think so, yeah.
Just to dig all the stuff out of it.
Yeah.
But for now, we're gonna hang with this one.
I think that works.
Nice.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey.
Well, we've got another late night recording session.
Here we are again. It's when we make our
the
best content.
The best laid plans. How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah.
And before you go any further, I would like to say today's your last day at your part-time job.
That's true.
It's been a great experience for you. And you've been there, what, 3
years,
half?
7 months.
Yeah. That's a long time.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to say that while you've been there, you have been one of the most caring and wonderful, and I think because it's late, I was trying to make leader into a, you've been a leadery person.
A leader-y person?
That's what was happening in my head just now.
You've displayed leadership. You've shown leadership.
Yeah, but that sounds so formal.
You've been a leader.
You have been a leader.
You've led.
All right, well, you weren't in my brain, okay? I'm just saying they are, especially at this time. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm so proud of you, and I think you're just the best. And all of the times that you come home and talk about, conversations that you've had with coworkers, or leadership at your job, or interviews that you've had as you've gotten promoted, or people that you have been trying to mentor and, bring them, as you say, kind of pull them up to where you are performance-wise. I just respect you so much. And I just think every single time I've heard you talk about your job and the way you are at your job, it more and more just makes me admire you and makes me so glad that I get to talk to you every day and hear all of your wisdom and skill, and hopefully get to take some of that into what I do too. And that's it. I just love you. Congratulations, because you have done a great thing. And now you're a full-time therapist. You did it.
Yeah, thank you.
Look out, world. Or welcome, world.
Yeah.
Come see Josh.
Really just look out Tennessee, because the license
that's true.
means that's where I can.
Well, but podcast, I mean, that goes
true.
all over the world.
That's true.
But you can't therapize on here.
I can't.
Yeah.
But I can entertain and I can educate. I can edutain.
Nope.
I can intercate.
Nope.
No. Okay. So when we learned that Mean Girls was going to be the subject of the episode, as previously mentioned, a fist pump and a yes occurred.
Oh yeah.
Why were you so excited about
this?
The movie?
Is a movie that I just associate with so much laughter and fun times. I have a group of friends that's from my hometown. We quote this movie truly all of the time. Probably, if it's not once a week, it is maybe like 2 or 3 times a week. And every time we see each other, it comes up. It's just one of those great quotable movies, Well, yeah, but this movie is, it just holds a lot of really fun memories, and it's also just really funny. Like, I feel like it's one of those movies that you watch, and then as you quote it, it becomes funnier.
Oh, yeah, I know. So what did you think about the things that Elizabeth was saying about it? Or even me, things that I said about it?
So Elizabeth, I'm just kidding. You both said wonderful things. Before I dive into the movie, though, I just want to point out a little edit that I think that people should know about. That what happened at the beginning of the episode with Elizabeth, like at the beginning of the interview. You talked about how you would want to, or like be good at hosting a late night show.
Oh, not an edit, but a comment.
Yeah. Well, I just think I
left it in. It's
a little caveat that needs to go in there.
Yeah, asterisk.
Joshua Treese is truly terrible at staying up late at night. But when I say he's truly terrible, it's not that he doesn't stay up late at night. It's that after 10 p.m., if he's still for more than 30 seconds, he will fall asleep. Right?
Including if I'm standing up.
Yes. He will go to sleep so fast, you won't even know what happened. And
I think it's fair to say that you've been in mid-sentence.
Oh, for sure. Especially, I'm one of those people who especially at sleepovers and stuff, I always really loved, okay, we're settling down, we're getting into bed, and now let's talk. Let's talk about our days. Let's talk about all the things.
Settling down.
Yes. Listen, listeners, you tell him, leave a comment, go on Twitter, and you tell him about, pillow talk. That's what it is. That's when the best conversations happen, is when there's nothing else except for the darkness to look at. And then you just hear each other's voices and you just talk back and forth. And so many good magical subjects can come up. Joshua and I have to have our pillow talk conversations, not laying down though. Because if we're laying down, the game is over. Call it. It's a forfeit.
I think it's fair to
other
say
sports terms
that you are a night owl
and
I am an
morning
early
owl.
bird. Yeah. Which are funny metaphors to use, as I am terrified of birds.
Yeah. And it's also funny because, like I said, it's not that we don't, here we are, we're up late. It's not that we don't stay up late, but it just is at a certain point, you are very close to sleep at all times. So all that to say, I just heard you talking about how you'd want to do a late show. And in my car, I went, what?
Yeah.
Because you could not do anything that late at night.
As I said before we started recording, they are broadcast late, but they are not recorded late.
Well, people still work late when they're on them, though.
Yeah, but not the host.
Yeah, the host does.
Yeah.
Didn't you see the videos of Jimmy Kimmel leaving the studio to get pranked by John Krasinski at night? It was nighttime.
No, I didn't see those.
Well, we'll watch it after this. Okay. So, the episode, or the interview with Elizabeth, when you guys talked about the mirror part, where they're talking about my pores are huge, man shoulders. I've always really liked that part in the sense that I think it just kind of depicts really well women's and girls, which is what we have to deal with. And I think what we're trained to do in terms of how we view ourselves. The plastics have just up until that point been depicted as these perfect specimens who, have their whole life together and everybody loves them and they're gorgeous and they're, they can have any guy they want and whatever. And then they stand in front of a mirror and point out flaws about themselves. And so it just is one of those moments where it shows that no matter who you are, even the most popular girls who seem like they have everything stand in front of a mirror and hate on themselves basically. And I just have always liked that it depicted that.
Well, when you say you like it, what do you mean you like it?
Well, I don't like that that's what we're faced with, but I like that it shows that even these quote unquote perfect girls see things wrong about themselves in the mirror, because there's other people who probably don't identify as the popular person or the person who has it all or has it all together, and we all do the same thing, or at least especially at that point in life, I think is when it's I don't even know if I could say most prevalent, because I think it's always prevalent, but that's just such a critical time in life for people, and girls truly can be so mean, and not just to others but to themselves as well. And I don't like the situation, but I like that the movie depicted, even if it's in a really funny way, like it kind of depicted that happening. And then the other thing that I sort of thought about as you guys talked about like your own high school experiences, which she had a really funny story about prom. She talked about how she had some experiences that might have been a little bit more, I guess, like harmful or something if her family hadn't been so supportive. And that just like, it stood out to me for a lot of reasons. One, because I think I identify with that a little bit. I mean, I had stuff in high school and middle school that was painful, but I did always know that my family loved me and was proud of me. And that does just make a giant difference, I think, especially for kids. Like, I don't know if maybe it sounds dumb and maybe everybody kind of thinks like, yeah, we all know that. But I think if you look, it is really fascinating to look at like research that talks about how impactful, you know, a chaotic home life or something like that can be. Not that it's the end all be all, but it just having a secure relationship. It's just attachment. It just goes back to attachment, you know, research and attachment facts and the way that we're designed. And one of the things we talk a lot about in my job is this thing called ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences. And there's all this science about, you know, this number of ACEs. It's about trauma. So like this number of ACEs is, you know, in childhood, it means that as an adult, like these health factors are probably going to be an issue. And one of the things we've learned is that one of the most impactful protective factors is a secure relationship or a relationship with a supportive adult. So, and I love that you plugged mentoring. Thank you for that. 'Cause it is like, that's what it made me think of. It's just crazy. It's just crazy how much of an impact a person being there and like being supportive in your life can be. It seems like something that's not a big deal, but it can be that actual biggest deal to a child going through a tough situation or like bullying or whatever it is.
Well, I don't think anybody is going to turn their nose down to having caring adults in the life of their child. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think that I'm a good example of that. I wouldn't be where I am today, or even be the person that I am today if it weren't for the presence in my life of several mentors along the way. Some of which I don't even know if at the time I would have said, oh, they're a mentor to me. They were just a caring adult that came alongside me and helped instill value in me and helped me figure out where I wanted to go and how I wanted to get there. And mentorship has just been a giant part of my life. Mm-hmm. So it's really easy for me to advocate for it.
Yeah.
I'm pro.
Everybody, just be supportive to the people in your life.
Well, love, I think we got it.
I think so too.
Mean Girls.
Get in, loser. We're going shopping.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I guess we will go ahead and raise the lights, lower the curtain, and say for this week, the theater is closed.